state is a fiercely competitive and ruthless society. Misery and triumph.
And now, After Hours with Rixx Javix.
Welcome to After Hours with Rixx Javix. I'm your host, Rixx Javix, coming to you from the darkest reaches of low-security space, live from the Stay Frosty Lounge. Grab a cold drink, light a cigar, and let's talk. Go ahead, say something. Make sure your levels are good.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Excellent. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
All right, good deal. All right, well, welcome to the podcast, Bam, and let's pretend like nobody's ever heard of you, and why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. First of all, thanks for inviting me. I'm Bam Stroker. I'm an EVE player and have been since about 2004, although I wouldn't really say I didn't really have my head in the game till about 2009. If I'm known for anything, it would be for the large Australian time zone player gathering EVE Down Under. I also handled, past tense now, marketing and PR on the EVE Bet website.
Right.
And I've been involved in a couple of other small things, small Alliance tournament teams. I also, along with my friend Ariel Rin, came up with the website evemeet.net. Generally, I'm always looking for different pies to stick my fingers in whenever the chances come up. I managed to get around. But those are probably the main things.
Well, you were on a CSM too, right?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, I am also a failed CSM candidate.
A failed CSM candidate.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to fail at it once at least, right?
I suppose.
I don't know.
A lot of people also manage to pull it off the first time. Me, not so much.
That is true. That is true.
Goes.
Yeah. I haven't run yet, so I'm not going to do that. I've been asked many, many times. I have decided, actually, it wasn't recently, but many years ago, I decided that I was going to not do that. So I do get the itch every once in a while, I have to admit.
Never say never.
You never say never. It's possible that Fozzie could really mess up Warp Core stabs, and then I would have to, right? So he keeps threatening.
I imagine you like one of those like cartoon characters who just starts stomping towards ice and pushing your sleeves up to your elbows.
That's right.
Yeah,
steam,
like
steam's
out of Popeye or something.
Yeah, steam's coming out of my ears and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I mean, maybe. Never say never. You never know. So, but yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about, let's get right to it. Obviously, I've had you, like I said, I've been wanting to have you on the show since it started. Because you and I we sort of haven't really talked even since FanFest, which was
2 years ago, I think.
Almost 2 years ago, yeah. So, but and catch up with that. So your name was always high on my list of interesting people because I really wanted to check in on Australia and see how things are going on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
But given recent events, obviously, your name certainly came to the top of that list. So, everyone who's listening at this point, the hammers that went down, the change to the EULA, the elimination of third-party off-site gambling as an institution in EVE, which is a huge change, no doubt about it. And you, in your posse, being part of the EVE Bet, which is probably quote unquote the good betting place, and nothing against anybody else. I don't really know a lot of those guys personally or anything, but certainly in my experience, and this is the only person that matters because I'm the host of the show, EVE Bet was always the stand-up guy. So tell us a little bit about how that came about. Were you hit out blindsided by it, or did you have any sort of inclination this was coming, or what?
It's fair to say we were completely blindsided by the change. I believe just about everybody was. I haven't spoken to a single person who said, "Oh yeah, I heard something about that coming down the pipeline." I think in a broader sense, people had the feeling that something was going to happen eventually.
Right.
You know, that there was going to be some changes, and maybe with the the CS:GO scandals that broke out a few months ago, a couple of people who were involved in various betting gambling sites probably looked around and went, "Oh, I wonder if this could have knock-on effects." As to the exact change and the timing of the change and the fact it was going to be in the dev blog, like, no, we had no clue.
No clue.
Came out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember even. I don't know, but it's probably about 2 months ago, having a small conversation about this with somebody on Slack when the Valve stuff started hitting about skins, right? And that was like, well, skins are in Eve, and then it doesn't take two geniuses to come up with the next thing. So, and I guess that's had something to do with it, obviously. CCP's gotten cold feet a little bit.
Yeah, obviously the situation with CS:GO, and if people aren't aware, the sort of, I think the thing that sparked it off was there are a couple of high profile, very well known streamers, and in the CS:GO, people could buy skins for their weapons and then trade those skins to other players on Steam, and actually, a fairly lucrative real world market sprung up for the buying and selling and trading of these skins.
Right.
And these CS:GO streamers would go on to would be streaming on Twitch, and sometimes they would, instead of streaming the game, they'd stream themselves playing on these casino sites and often winning, like outrageous amounts of skins and stuff. And what came to light eventually was that these streamers actually were the ones who secretly owned the websites that they were gambling on while they were streaming, and rigging the lotteries to make it, to make the site look more appealing to their viewers. Some of whom were very, very young. Now, the actual sort of like, issues, the ethics of doing that aside for a moment, what that did when that blew up and people figured out what was going on, that brought a lot of attention, a lot of angry parents, a lot of media scrutiny, those kinds of things. And those are the kinds of things that governments notice. Mm-hmm. And so that's brought a lot of scrutiny on online gambling in all of its forms, not just that kind of thing, but legitimate casino websites and all of the websites that are associated with these games. So as a result of that, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some big sweeping changes that are going to be coming down in the next year or two. And I think what instigated the change to the end of use license agreement that CCP did wasn't solely the issues that they outlined in the dev blog, some websites being responsible for RMT and so on.
Right.
But I think they're also just getting out in front of this inevitable real world change that's coming and saying, let's just tear the Band-Aid off now, quickly, once. It's going to hurt, but at least now we're putting ourselves in a position so that we're not going to have any sort of legal dramas down the road.
Yeah, I mean, despite the initial reaction of, oh my God, what the hell is that? And it makes sense when you think about it. If there's a connection between ISKIs and real money, which there is, and that connection of Plex, right? I mean, so that's that transference of real world money. I can spend money and make ISK out of it, and vice versa, sorta. So if that connection, if it exists, then that's a problem for them moving forward, is what I'm getting at. It's not like the Eve economy is separate from the real world economy. It's not a bubble.
No.
I think if it was a bubble, then that wouldn't be a problem, right? But even then, I mean, I don't know that I've told anybody this, but I was telling my wife this the other night because we were talking about it. 2 weeks into playing Eve, this was 8 years ago. And again, I had never read anything about Eve. I got on to play Eve because of my divorce. My son had come to live with me full time, and he's the one that got me involved in playing Eve. So back in the early days, I just played with him, and I followed him around wherever he went. And I was telling another story. So I was on a website, and I saw an ad that said ISKIs. Right, so I was like, "Holy crap!" So I spent, I think it was $19. I bought some ISKIs, and the dude convoed me in game, and I had to trade him some trit or something in a contract, and I got.
It says what make it look like it was just an innocent exchange between players.
I can't remember how much it was. Exactly.
Selling you some overpriced titanium.
Yeah, and I got like $1.5 billion ISKI for it. It was like $19 or something, and about 2 days later, I got this really nasty email from CCP saying you had done this and we took your money, and they did. They took it away, and they said never do that again. And I was like, holy crap! I didn't know there was a that was wrong. So
Yeah.
that was my experience with it. But that connection exists. It's the EVE economy is not in a bubble, and I know as a parent, my children play. I have 3 boys that are still living at home, and they play tons of video games, and they're into that stuff too. They're into skins for every game. They're watching the streamers. They're doing all that, and they are very susceptible to that sort of mischievous lie, essentially. So I can speak as a parent, knowing that would be upsetting to me as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think like I am guilty of doing the same thing that you just described. Back in the day, a long time ago, I bought some ISK off of. I think they were just selling it openly on eBay. You could go and
that might have been right. That might have been eBay. Yeah.
And there were websites where you could not just spaceships, but just buy individual items. I specifically remember when I was a very, very young player looking at one of these websites and coveting a Caldari Navy caracal. And wow, if I had one of those, I'd be unstoppable. Right. They're never going to get it. But
that's funny.
Well, yeah, I was newbie. It's funny that you talk about like just the link between like the real life money and ISK, and just the now you can go buy a Plex. And no one bats an eye. And I mean, the Plex was a fucking genius move by CCP.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. It combated the real world ISK sellers by giving a legitimate way to obtain ISK, which is sort of like
they all disappeared. There's no reason for them anymore. Right.
If you right click on someone's name, I think only if you're in JITA, there's still an option there to report ISK spammer. But right. But I haven't seen one in a long time.
No.
Yeah, so they introduced the Plex to give people a legitimate way to buy ISK. It also becomes an in-game item, so it still retains its inherent value of 30 days of game time. And because it's an in-game item, the thing can get blown up, and then CCP have got $20 worth of game time that they never actually have to give to anyone. So then it's becomes like brilliant.
And not only that, but if you remember back. The one of the reasons why they did it was to stop the mining bot guys, that were out in nullsec, like 20 bots, running on 20 screens, mining everything to generate that extra ISK that they were selling.
That income, yeah.
So that was another way to combat that as well. So then they did that, and then it wasn't that long after that the casino thing started. Really,
you know what? I honestly can't. I mean, if you know anything about the origins of those sites, because from my memory, the earliest site I can remember is SumBlink. Was the earliest site I can remember registering on and using myself and hearing about, and not including obviously things that have been around forever, like the Big Lottery and EOH Poker.
Exactly. Right.
But to me, Summer was the first, like casino, Vegas mega casino of gambling websites, because it seemed ubiquitous. And everyone was using it, Yeah,
the EOH Poker, they were around, forever too. And I can still remember people doing that, playing the games, but without betting really. And then I think Summer, and of course that one had its problems too. I mean, that was a big controversy back in the day.
I think in some ways Summer Blink was almost like it was CCP. Was figuring out what the relationship between CCP and websites like that would be like.
Yeah. And
that led them to making perhaps a few naive missteps along the way in how they dealt with that in terms of
I think it's very difficult
patronage.
I think it's very difficult for the average EVE player to imagine the complexity of legal guidelines and rules and law that CCP has to operate within. As a global company, and now they're in China. Now they're expanding into different areas, and not to put too fine a point on it, but they're also expanding the brand into the PlayStation and the Xbox and other things, and mobile gaming now with their new games. So they're expanding their tendrils out a little bit more, and then along came the November 8th release, and they also bombshell announcement that we were going to have a free-to-play element in EVE. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I mean, don't you agree? I mean, we're going to open the doors, and most of those alphas are going to be 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who are trying out Eve for the first time. I know my boys are very excited. They keep asking me when can we start playing Eve. So, and it's hard to say no now if it's free, right? So
yeah, that's right. So it deprives you of one of the big excuses that you would have, I suppose.
Right. The money. Yeah. So
yeah, that's right. And especially obviously it's young kids. Young kids, I'm no doubt take up free to play games proportionally a lot more than you'd think an older person who with disposable income would.
Right, they might be a little bit more careful about what they're doing or spending their time on, because they have a lot more disposable time than I do. That's for sure. So they're not as careful about spending, because they're going to live forever, right? So yeah. But I think that had a lot to do with it. I think that it's not a coincidence that announcement was made, and then it followed up with this announcement. I think it's almost like, I've said this before, I think it's almost like, we've got guests coming and we need to clean the house. Yeah,
that's probably a perfect analogy for it. What's going on there?
So how did that, how's that affect you as a, obviously, you're one of the largest Eve player meets in the world, Eve Down Under. How does that, from an event standpoint, how does that affect you, you think?
It's actually had a fairly huge effect on us. Like for example, one of the things we're going to be running at Eve Down Under this year was a poker tournament, which we ran last year, and it was a big success. And all of the prizes for the poker tournament were in-game prizes. We gave away Plex, we gave away battleships, for the people who come from first all the way down to like 8th place or something. It was a 40-man tournament. Right. We can't do that now. We still want to do the tournament, but now we're desperately trying to figure out how do we reward people. Why? I mean, obviously people are going to do it for fun, but you want to give them something.
Absolutely.
They win a tournament, they deserve a prize. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do there. In terms of other things, just also our PvP tournament in-game prizes are provided for that, and we normally. In the past, we've given away just like alliance tournament ships in a raffle, just things like that. There's like 100 little things that, in one way or another, third-party gambling sites. In my case, mostly EveBet. One of the benefits of being a player organizer, a gathering organizer who also happens to have like his hand in the wallet of a gambling website's marketing division is the fact that I can sort of take care of my needs, as it were, in terms of helping to provide for the community. And of course, not just ours. We provided this to pretty much all the major player gatherings in one form or another. Player-on ones, obviously. Those guys are now going to have to, like me, figure out how do we do this now? Like, the event can still go forward. People can still show up. People are still going to have time. But as an organizer, you want to provide them just that something extra, or give them that little incentive. It was a very easy thing.
Even I don't know, you probably don't know, but over the summer, my wife and I organized our very first player meet here in Pittsburgh.
And, Steel City Eve, was that what we called it?
Yeah, exactly. And we had 20, 25 people show up for that one, and it was a huge success. EveBet provided time codes and some Balgorns to give away. So, and that was through Nash, through you, through EveBet. But so it trickled down, but it helped us too. And as small as our Eve, Eve meet was. But not only just that, but also the website. The Eve Meet website, which is awesome, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a great resource, and we desperately needed something like that. So it serves a great purpose and for the community, but I hope that's not going to be impacted in any way.
Eve Meet will be fine. It doesn't. That no risk changes hands there. It's purely just like a front-facing website. That was something Eve Meet or something like it. I'd been speaking to CCP Falcon, CCP Guard about for a while. I was like, you guys need to make a website like it again. Running, doing the Eve Down Under stuff and doing also not just Eve Down Under, but I was I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it was 2014 was probably was the year I was most busy with player gatherings because I was organizing local player gatherings all around Australia in different cities, in Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Perth.
Nice.
Because there were players everywhere, and there were so many of them were saying like, you wish we had a player gathering here, and I was like, all right, let's make one then, and I would pick a bar and a time and get some advice from people about where a good place to go was, and then I'd get on a plane and I'd fly there just to make sure that if people turned up, there were other people there to talk to. And
that's awesome.
It's so funny because
how easy it was.
Exactly. That was basically demonstrating this, like, hey, everyone having a good time? Yeah, this was easy. All I did was, pick a day and a time, and here we are. And so I was traveling around sort of tent polling, setting, just trying to get the local community to coalesce, because we're doing the podcast every week then. Eve Down Under was like fairly popular and ubiquitous in the Australian time zone. So I was sort of leveraging off that just to say, hey guys, I'm coming to your town. Let's all go to the pub and have some beers together. And 5 or 6 guys would show up here, but 20 or 30 guys would show up there. I was like, holy crap, like even the largest just local get together player gatherings were at the time still huge for just
that's amazing.
Yes, small gathering like that. Since then, thankfully, generally around the world, that's now very typical to get that many people just to what was, a few mates at a bar. Now you got in London and Glasgow, and I think Dublin that speak to mind there, come to mind there.
Yep.
There were just a few guys at a pub, which are now, anywhere between, 60 and 150 people with devs flying over for them.
Right. So like Nash is like Nottingham of all things,
Yes,
taking
that's
off
right.
Several hundred people at a time, and Eve Amsterdam and all of them are very, very successful now. I mean, it's really doing well. So, I think it is a large, contributing factor is how easy it is to organize now.
Yeah, I completely forgot what I was ranting about, like going to local player gatherings. Right. Can you remember?
I know, right? It was a while ago.
Anyway, so set up all those events, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And it was really good for Eve Down Under as an event as well, because with all these local communities that were active and engaged, that sort of like fed into the main event, and that's why I think in 2015 last year we sort of like. I think we hit like our natural ceiling for what we can expect given the size of the population of the players in Australia, and you have to sort of like continually cut it down. You have only so many players in Australia, and only so many of those are engaged enough in Eve to find out about Eve Down Under, and only so many of those are outgoing enough to want to come to a player gathering. And what you're left with is probably about 230 or 240 people, and that's all you've got to work with. And if you get that many people to an Eve Down Under, then you've basically got 100% attendance from all viable. Players.
The audience isn't all that big. The dedicated the walkabouts who are going to actually show up. I wonder how alphas will impact that. I guess we'll have to find out. It's hard to predict that kind of thing. I don't know. I've heard a lot of wild guesses about how many people we're talking about. And I still don't really necessarily believe that. I think Eve's kind of a very niche-y game, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm very curious about how many. What the numbers are going to look like when the alpha doors open, Me
too. I just in discussions with friends, I've heard different numbers thrown around. I think the one consistent thing is that at the end of the day, no one's really got any good idea, what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Is the logged in player count is going to triple overnight? Is the needle barely going to wiggle? I have no idea.
I know. I don't know.
I think it depends on what kind of marketing campaign CCP have to follow up behind this.
Right.
And just the other day, I was talking to somebody about the the new expansion. We'll probably get a trailer. At Vegas, they'll probably show off a trailer or something like that.
Right.
And then I remembered probably about 6 to 12 months ago, they started doing did a dev blog calling for players to be interviewed by CCP.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah, I sent in for that. And nothing really came of it. Yeah.
They were doing them in 2 or 3 places, but they said we might around the world, and they said we might do them in others if there's enough interest for it. And that just sort of came back to me, and I just started thinking about what that what the end goal of that could have been. You know, what product they might have come up with, and then with their alpha clones thing, it kind of makes sense.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a sexy CGI trailer for Ascension, but behind that, I think there might also be. I wouldn't be surprised to see if the marketing push for the alpha clones is based on that ad campaign that they've been assembling.
Well, that's interesting because I always had this. Well, you know, I'm an ad marketing guy myself, and I always had this picture in my head of a really cool campaign where it's the stories and it's me telling it because say Rixx is one of the guys, so it's Rixx telling it, but it's me talking like I am to you. So I'm relaying this story, but it's Rixx's head and his character who's animated, who's telling the story on the video. You know, so that's kind of neat. It's that connection between the real human being and the character in the game. And
that's
impact.
cool.
You know, kind of switch between what the in game and out of game thing is. I think it could be pretty powerful.
It would be kind of like a mashup between. Do you remember the "I Was There" campaign that they did?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that was maybe a little bit too over the top, but if you combine that, like the immersion, you know, the way it points to the immersion of a player in the game, if you take that element and combine it with just the sandbox feel of the This Is Eve trailer. So I Was There and This Is Eve. If you mash those up together, maybe that's what we're going to get something like.
Maybe, you know, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
I'm probably completely wrong, but I'm saying this as often as possible so that I can turn around and say I told you so. And if I'm completely wrong, well, you know, I'll never mention these things again.
I do that all the time. That's like 37% of why I write a blog, just so I can write an article, a crazy harebrained thing, and then when it comes true, I can take credit for it, right? Like hats. Like we have hats. I'm totally taking credit for that. So, like nobody thought of that before me. So,
come on.
Yeah. I'm the
you
hat
made it
guy.
ubiquitous. You made it ubiquitous on Tweet Fleet.
That's right. And if anything ever happens to Workcore Stabs, I could take total credit for that too. So, yeah. So I was going to ask you, back on a more serious note for a moment. No, I'm kidding. Very solemn and serious. But a lot of people who play Eve are not as into things as some of us can tend to be, and I think that a lot of these terms get thrown around. So I wanted to take a minute, and maybe you can do this since you were involved in it. But explain. See, is there a way to explain how you would RMT a casino? Like, there's a lot of ISK flying around, and we've seen some of these numbers are insane. Trillions of dollars are ISKs. So how does one go about doing that? If you wanted to be crooked about it, and you wanted to make real world money out of a casino, because we only got a couple weeks left, right? So nobody's going to do it. So, but how do you go about doing that? In terms of and I already know the answer, but I was just giving you an opportunity to explain it, so I don't have to. Oh man, I'm not actually au fait with the techniques used. I know sometimes people use obviously fake contracts. Selling a modest in-game item for like what happened to me, right?
a grossly inflated price for ISK. Yeah, exactly, that sort of thing. I've known of players and corporations who have basically dropped the pretense of the ISK on an internal sense, like somebody will go to their corp and say, if you PayPal me like $10, I will contract you. I will add $30 to your game time. Right. Just like that. So it's that whole. I give you $1 billion for a gross, because a billion ISK is about the price of a Plex, generally speaking, and so that Plex is X number of dollars. So if I'm selling it to you for half that or a quarter of that, then I'm getting cash, but you're getting a higher value too. So that's right. So your website is generating hundreds of billions or trillions of ISK. Use that to buy Plexes in game, and then you just sell them in real world under the table at a discount, so that it's worth buying. You make it worth buying from you, and that's a way for you to dispose of your surplus ISK and make some money on the side. Right. So that's essentially it, really. I guess for me, it's like what I'm unclear on really is how a lot of people sort of start at the front of the chain. You know, it's
Right,
like, how do I
right.
advertise that service to you? So I assume there can only be like a network of players in Eve who handle, you know, almost like handlers and stuff like that, who the people with the surplus of ISK approach them, and they are able to connect them with whoever's out there that's buying.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like a lot like the old numbers game was with the mobsters. You know, you'd want as many people between you and the end customer as possible. You know, sort of like layers of protection. So all that was just a setup to see if you actually knew how to do it. And I think that BAM has passed the test. So good for you. Good for you. You weren't all that knowledgeable about how to RMT, so I think you're going to be okay.
That's not the right answer.
No, I mean we got around to the right answer, but you didn't have it like ready to go. You were like,
okay,
yeah. You weren't like, okay, now here's how you do it. Yeah,
here's what you do. Put on like the green. Put on the green visor, you know, the accountant's visor, and turn on the desk lamp. All right, here's what you do.
Here's what you do, kids. Here's how it works. Or check my website for the download. Yeah, so that's good news. I'm glad to hear that. So you didn't get banned or anything like that, right? You're good to go. You're still playing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I'm still here for now, although, you know, now that I evidently understand the best way to RMT a large fortune, I think CCP Pellegro is going to be listening to this podcast with great interest, and then maybe taking a look at my wallets afterwards.
Right.
But
well, apparently
I'll be fine.
Yeah, apparently they do. Listen, I got a nice shout out on the AT tournament there, so
there
that's
you go.
Pretty cool. Yeah, so I had a question ready to go, and now I messed it up. You messed me up with that sexy Australian accent of yours.
Are you sure it wasn't just my long-winded answer?
It was probably that
my long-winded rambling answer, trying to get around to the point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm completely blanked out. Okay, so we talked about RMT. We talked about Eve Bet. Oh, I was going to say, I was going to make a snark remark about Lenny, but I didn't do that. So I'll leave that. Because when I started out, I asked you if you'd heard anything ahead of time. And the reason I brought that up was because, in hindsight, it was a little weird because a week before, I get this convo through a couple different channels that Lenny Kravitz wanted to talk about this thing he was doing with the Citadels and for the charity. And I don't want to delve into it too much, but it was just it was fine at the time. And because he told me on the podcast, this was a couple podcasts ago, that he was stepping down from IWI, and at the time it didn't mean all that much, but in hindsight it was a little weird because the timing of that.
Some people have brought that up, the fact that Iron Bank and Lenny both sort of just cashed out of I Want This only 2 weeks before the news broke. You know,
right.
All of a sudden, so.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not much of a tinfoiler. I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah. Tipped off or anything.
What does it matter anyway? This world of ours and our community is so interconnected, and not only it's so easy to pass on information now. You know, back when you and I started, it wasn't even this easy. I mean, now we've got Slack channels and Discord channels and
oh my god,
and
so
Twitter
many
and everything. I mean, my god, I've got so many channels open at once.
I can't even keep up with them all anymore. I sort of like have to. I had too many plates spinning, and now I'm just like, okay, I can only do like 2 or 3 of these things at a time. So, yeah, it's just
I've had to do
there's
that
just so much.
I had almost 12 different Slack channels going at one time there, and then a few weeks back somebody said, "Oh, we're not on Slack anymore. We're on Discord," and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me! That's a whole nother thing I have to have."
Yeah.
So yeah, I've killed about 6 of those Slack channels. I'm not in them anymore. I've said goodbye, guys. I'm going to not do this. So too many things going bing at me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Right now, I'm staring at Slack. I'm staring at Discord. I've got Jabber as well, and Twitter. It's just ubiquitous. Reddit is another one I can't get myself away from. There's so much internet spaceships out there. You can just literally immerse yourself in it.
You could do it 24/7, I think, and not even mess up. Yeah. So I mean, okay. So Eve Bet's going to close down, or are you guys staying open till the last minute, or?
Okay. So that had been the plan,
Right.
but unfortunately, on Sunday afternoon, during the final match of the Alliance tournament, a DDoS attack was initiated on our website.
No way.
And so at first, Yeah, no, yeah. It at first we just thought it was like something that was, during the AT. It's not uncommon for our website to get hugged to death.
Right. Lots
When
of traffic.
And it was the final match, and the website started to slow down, and we were like, okay, it'll recover. It always does. We'll just turn off some other services that aren't as important during the AT, just to focus on the sports betting aspect, so people can put their bets on. Then the site went down, and it didn't come back up, and we were contacted by our. Or rather, we got in touch with our server people and found out it was actually a DDoS attack, which had brought the website down.
Jeez.
And so that was obviously frustrating because we were looking forward to the AT wrapping up. All of the staff had been banking furiously and tweeting furiously in my case, and closing matches and posting them on the websites for 3 weeks straight. And in my case, like I'm staying up till 5 a.m. just to watch the AT anyway while I'm doing all this stuff. So I was absolutely exhausted, and it was just like, oh god, now you tell me we've got to sort this out after the Andy Euler stuff the other day.
Right.
So then we went into trying to save the ship, figure out what the problem was, and bring the website back up. But after 2 or 3 days, there were some additional technical challenges to reactivating the site. So we had intended to keep operating right up until the 8th of December. CCP had basically, in that Euler dev blog, had, in not so many words, referred to EveBet and said we were cool. So we were okay to keep operating for that time.
Exactly.
But then the DDoS happened, that we couldn't get the site back up, and we just kind of said, well, that's it. We have to stop now. So we operated until about 5 minutes until the commencement of the final match of the AT, and that's when EveBet went down and hasn't been back up since.
Okay, it hasn't been back up since. Now I already knew that, but I just wanted you to say that story.
Yeah,
but yeah, no. So, but the intention is to cut even with everybody, right? That's still the intention.
Absolutely.
All the bets are going to be resolved and everything's going to be taken care of. It's just going to be done in a little bit more cumbersome way, I guess.
Well, actually, it's a very simple way.
Right.
It was a fairly elegant solution we came up with. So if anyone is listening to this and you still have ISK in your EveBet wallet, and you want to get that ISK back before the 8th, because even though the site is down, we can still transfer money around until the 8th. You just need to send an in-game Eve mail to a character called EveBet Recruiter. That's like 3 words, EveBet Recruiter. Just make sure they're in the Eve-Bet Corp. And you've sent the email from the character, which is associated with your EveBet account, because we'll receive that email. One of our bankers will look your character's name up in the database, and if you've got an account and if there's actually any ISK left in your wallet, they'll just transfer it straight to you in game. So
excellent.
It's super easy. All they need to do is send an email. Previously, the process would have been almost the same, except you'd go to the website and you'd go withdraw ISK. The only problems with doing it this way, because our users can't access the site anymore, is that our users can't physically eyeball the wallet and say that is how much ISK I have. So my concern was when we were announcing the plan, is that there would be people going, oh sure, you'll send all the ISK in our wallet,
right.
Because no matter how
It's Eve after
honest,
all, right?
No matter how honest Eve has been over the years, like there was always this is Eve. There's always going to be people who are just like, you guys are fucking up to something, and any minute now. And it's getting funny though, because like when Eve first opens his doors, it was like, you're going to send me your risk, you're never going to get it back, and then we started paying people out. It's just like this is a scam. All they're trying to do is RMT your money. CCP do a huge investigation and lets EveBet operate even after they close down some other websites, and now it's like, oh, you were just waiting till the last minute. It's like we're literally putting ISK back in people's wallets, and I'm sure they're going, this isn't actually happening. You've given me hallucinogenic drugs somehow. This ISK isn't really here. You didn't really just give it back. It's
I have to say, if this was the plan all along, it was a terrible plan.
It's a shitty plan.
It's a shitty plan. It's a shitty plan, yes. Okay, so that brings up something I did want to ask you, though, that I don't know the answer to, and that is, obviously, there's probably people who aren't playing Eve anymore who've probably forgotten about their EveBet wallet, or there's guys that have fallen off a cliff who are never going to think about their. So at the end of the day, there's going to be some left over. Have you guys given any thought to what's going to happen to that? You're just going to pay out to the staff, or put on a big event, or buy Rixx a really cool ship or something, or what do you do with it?
Well, any ES that's left over in active wallets after the 8th, after everyone else has sort of claimed, because it's a user initiated claim that they have to request it. We're not just arbitrarily going to give it back. We're going to keep it. We're going to keep it for us.
Okay,
and
good.
Yeah, and we've been at this for 4 years. We've made ISK along the way, which has helped us like plex an accounts or buy nice spaceships and things for ourselves there, which is good. But I think our staff deserve a nice little retirement payout, and so whatever's left, we're just going to divide that up amongst ourselves. I think some of it is going to be set aside though to assist some long-term partners that we're very close with. That we've been sponsoring for a long time, because obviously you don't want just to
cut everybody off, right?
Turn the faucet off, and leave them in the lurch. So I think that we're going to have like a little bit of a fund set aside so that we can keep those guys funded, or either at a full or maybe a reduced rate for a month or two, just to give them some time to transition, to figure out how they're going to pay their staff now, those kinds of things.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that too, because I can tell you that day, all those Slack channels just started pinging like nuts. I mean, it was pandemonium in the Crossing Zebras, in the Eve NTs, in the all across the community, because everybody was like, "Oh my God!" It was total panic. It was hysterical. I actually posted a couple of those, Panic on the Streets of London, from Morrison, from the Smiths, and some of those, because that's what it felt like, chickens with their heads cut off, right? And and it was a little bit disconcerting. Like a lot of people have become, and I don't want to go, again, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, and I know almost all these people, as well as anybody, and I know their hearts are in it, and for the right reasons. And it's not that they, like you said with Eve Down Under, it's not that people aren't going to continue doing what they're doing. It's just that made it easier. It makes it easier to be able to give people prizes that come to an Eve meet, and when you don't have to go out and mine for 78 hours in a row to make the ISK to do it. And it makes it easier for Crossing Zebras or EVNT or any of those community sites to pay their staff for the hours they spend coming up with these really great articles that are very detailed and take a lot of time to write. So because you're doing that, you're not playing Eve, and it's nice. It's nice. It's a nice little bonus. Nobody's getting rich off of it or anything. I know I can speak to that myself. So. But it is a nice little thing. It's not why I do this podcast, but it is nice to see that blink happen in my wallet every so often. Because
you don't have to sort of like you say, you don't have to preoccupy yourself with some of the more mundane tasks. You can get on with doing what you love most in Eve, which is being a filthy pirate. You can go shoot people in the face instead of.
Right.
Watching the cargo hold.
I'm not ashamed of it. That for the last 6 years, I haven't done any of that. I haven't PvE'd or mined or had to rat or run sites, or all I do is pirate. And it's because of the community. It's because I do I do logos and banners and everything else and videos and stuff to pay for Eve for me. So all my ISKI comes from that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same here. Like I haven't had a rat or do incursions. Doing incursions was my main thing. The main way I'd make money, I'd just had an alt in a basilisk, and I'd just get onto some
incursion teams, right?
Valhalla. Sorry.
So incursion teams, running.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's just how I sort of make my use to do other things, but I haven't had to do any of that stuff for a few years either. And all the time that I've worked for EveBet. I've actually kept my subs paid in cash and not plexed.
Right.
Because maybe it's a little bit. Maybe people think it's a bit cheesy, but I think Eve's a bloody good game, and I like to support CCP like that. When I've got ISK for plexers, I usually use that to activate multiple character training now, just to keep my other specialize other characters for different tasks.
Yep, and then put that ISK into assets. That's what I like.
Yeah.
assets. I collect spaceships in game, so I have a hangar full of ships and there's a few that I would like to not blow up. I like to keep a little one of everything is kind of like what I just like to bring them out every so often.
Yeah.
Because I'm never going to fly an echelon, but I do like to look at it every so often. It's kind of neat to own.
Oh yeah, right.
Right.
It's nice to have it in your hangar for completeness sake.
Yeah.
But you can still get an echelon off the market for just a couple of mil, can't you?
Oh yeah, I think they're still for sale. Yeah. I got my pirate rookie ships and stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are cool.
I want CCP to hurry up and turn the Rattlesnake Victory Edition into a skin, because I'm too much of a coward to fly around in it.
Right.
A single.
Now there's a good idea. They should sell. They should sell AT skins. So it's just a regular ship, but it's got an AT skin on it. It's like AT8. You could put on.
I think CCP should do that just so I can see the tears on Reddit. And all the butt furious nerds stand up and say, "Oh, I can't do this."
You can't do that. It looks like a fiend, but it's not. That's funny. I hadn't thought of that before. That's a good idea. See, it's the kind of thinking that CCP needs more of. I think, Bam, you and I should definitely be brought on to market this.
Maybe they need to hire some people from Valve.
There you go. Some skin training on Steam.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
Make it a thing
before it goes too far. So, I mean, actually, being in the Australian time zone does have its major drawbacks. I know, and it can often be a pain in the ass. But it's got to be great for incursions, though. I would think.
Yeah, it does. Actually, there are a bunch of. I always complain about downtime and things like that, but there are a lot of benefits actually to be in the Australian time zone. Yeah, so certainly incursions, because the fleets are always reforming after DT, and you seldom get stuck in a queue waiting to get pulled into a fleet.
Right.
With the specter of downtime, if you have to move a big, heavy, valuable asset through nullsec, you can always just do it right before downtime, because it only takes a few minutes to take a couple jumps. And if it blows up in your face and get tackled, the saying is tank till downtime.
Right.
Turn your hardeners on and go out and get a beer, because they shoot you, but the server's going to shut down in 3 minutes and they're not going to get through your HP by then, so you're gravy. So that's another
awesome
thing. Another really great thing is whenever a new change is introduced to the game, they patch it at downtime. So as soon as it comes back up, if there's anything there for you that can be exploited,
the Australians are first, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because it's always on Tuesdays as well. So Americans should be in bed. UK people, Europeans should be at work. And it's like prime time in Australia. Everyone's sitting at home with a beer and waiting for the server, anxiously for the server to come back up. And so examples for that, like, were when the Venture was introduced to the game. I sent my Chimera out to Outer Ring. I bought a BPO immediately and jumped it straight back to Empire, and I put some of the first BPOs for Pure and Cheetah on the market and made a nice profit, because there are people with a lot of ISK and not much patience who are willing to pay a ridiculous price just to get it.
Absolutely, yeah.
When as the new T3 destroyers rolled out, whenever the skill books were seeded on the market in advance, so people could start training them. Before downtime, I had an alt. I would just make 2 jumps to the trade school in Etamo,
right?
And straight after the downtime, I'd buy a huge stack of these skill books, run them 2 jumps to Jita, and sell them at like 1,000% markup, and they'd just sell like that. These are some of the benefits. There are benefits to being an Australian time zone player as well, if you just think about how you can exploit it.
What time of day is downtime for you? I mean, your time.
It's about 8:30 p.m., which is
it is right in the middle of the
It sucks. It sucks because you're just getting going. Or you're right in the middle of it. That's the biggest play. I mean, I just talked about how, as an AUTZ player, you can take advantage of downtime. But if I'm to be honest, it's more than offset by the fact that it's so disruptive to our gameplay. Yeah, and every time I bring this up with CCP in conference or something like that,
Right.
the answer is usually, but it's only down to 5 minutes. It's only down to, and that is fantastic because I mean, I don't know about you, Rix, but I remember the days when downtime was an hour every day, no exceptions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
And for me, we're 12 hours, almost exactly 12 hours behind you. So mine's at 8:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, 8:30. Depends on daylight savings time. It's either 7:30 or 8:30. So, I mean, a lot of times that's first thing in the morning what I do. So I have something that I have to get done, like take this here or take that there, and I like to do it, first thing in the morning before the day gets started. So it's a pain in the ass. It used to be more of a pain in the ass when it was an hour and a half sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. But from my perspective, even if CCP got it down to 30 seconds, that's not the problem with downtime. The problem with downtime is the disruption. So if you're in a fleet with some friends, and because you do small going rooms and things like that, you have to, if you're flying in Australian time zone, you sort of have to, you have to wind the fleet down prior to prime time. So downtime. Say it's coming up about half an hour before downtime hits. Your SC has to be going like, okay, I've got to get my people safe. Yes. So where can I take them? So the focus moves from flying and fighting to just like finding safe harbor. You dock up, downtime hits, downtime then the servers come back up, and then you have to sit there and watch people trickle back in, see how many of your fleet mates actually decided to come back,
Yes.
And then you reform the fleet and you undock and you get going again. So even though downtime might only last for 5 minutes, the actual impact on the gameplay, it might be to the order of 30 or 40 minutes,
absolutely.
Because just by existing, it completely affects what you are doing with your game time.
Right. Well, we're all EVE players, so we know if you start a fleet and you say, I'm going to have a small gang go out tonight, guys, we're going for a roam at 1800. Well, you're not leaving till 1830, 1845.
Yeah.
And nothing ever happens on time in EVE, even the Alliance tournament. As much as they threaten us, and as tight as it is and as nervous as everybody is, we're still 5, 10, 15 minutes late. The one match we had was almost 45 minutes. 45 minutes of us sitting in a station waiting. It's insane.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah. So I know we had 3 or 4 Australian guys in our AT team, and God bless them because they're up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning their time. For the matches. So. But they were real troopers, and they did really well for us. So kudos to them for that.
You guys. I was watching with interest how you guys performed, and I think you did. I think you guys did a great job, and I would assume you guys eclipsed your own expectations.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, our goal. Well, last year we were kind of just goofing off because the Alliance hadn't been that old. We were just barely old enough to get in. And
you got 2-0 that one, didn't you?
0-2, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sorry,
Excuse me. Yeah, and we lost our first 2 matches, and we deserved it because they were tough teams, and but we fought well. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't we weren't lackadaisical. We did practice quite a bit, but we were much more serious this time, and it was and we put a lot of time and effort into it, and the guys were very, very excited. And the Alliance is a little older now, so we had a lot more participation. And last year we barely had 12 people for the full team. So this year we had many more people participate, and we've been practicing for a good 3 or 4 months, and because even we didn't know at the first, because usually the AT's during the summer. So this year I like this much better, it not being in the summer.
Rixx Javix needs downtime to reset the server as well.
Oh man! Well, at least you aren't like I think it was Johnny Pugh who I was talking to, and it did it, and I didn't. He didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything, and then like the whole last 20 minutes was lost.
And what was the other one? I was listening to your interview with Charles White. And,
Max.
It was Nash. It was Nash.
Nash, right?
Didn't you have some technical issues with Nash's one as well, and you had to re-record it basically?
I had to re-record the whole thing. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, Nash though. All I have to say is, "Hey, Nash, welcome to the show," and then I can just not say anything for the rest.
Yeah. No, he's awesome.
He can he can interview himself, So, yeah, he is awesome. But so that was a sucky thing to happen. We are not all that professional here, Bam. You might be surprised.
Just a couple of spaceship nerds having a chat on Skype.
Yeah.
It's an excellent premise for a podcast, though. I wish I thought of doing something like it myself. Actually, I had an idea of a while back of doing a podcast not dissimilar to this one, and and calling it. Do you know that Between Two Ferns?
Yes, that was the Zach Galifianakis show. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to call it Between Two Merms, and like the logo would have two myrmidons,
right.
Like my avatar in the front. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But I'm lazy, so I don't deserve any accolades for something I haven't done.
No, I would love to be able to do this in person, but I don't know how the heck you would ever make that work. So without it being a trust fund baby or somebody who could fly around the world and do it, but.
Or maybe you go to like a fan fest like you did a couple of years ago and just record like 30.
I did nothing else but record a whole bunch of them. Hey guys, come on over.
Then you're still releasing them like 2 years later and they're just fucking not relevant at all. What they're talking about is no bearing. What's going on in the game.
Okay, we can't talk about anything specific in this show. We have to be very general and generalized about it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's funny. We should make a sign between two merms. That was good. And do that at FanFest. That'd be funny. Yeah, so I'm out of things to talk about, Bam.
Okay.
You have anything? Well, you have anything else you'd like to bring up or mention or anything? I was being that was just intended as humorous, but.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
No, okay.
I didn't. I did take it as humorous, but I thought you were just like, "Yep, I've ticked all the boxes."
Good
so.
night.
Bye. Click. What? Hello.
Hello. I got a frog in my throat now too. So.
Oh, nice one. Actually, speaking of some of your other interviews, if anyone's listening, if anyone listens to this podcast that hasn't listened to it, go listen to the one that Rixx did with Max Singularity. So good. The first 20 minutes out, like with Max just talking about like as a young guy how he got his job at JPL and when he was talking about Carl Sagan and things like that, just put a huge smile on my face. It was really, really cool. That guy's awesome. Had awesome experiences. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a hell of a nice guy too. And
totally.
he absolutely loves Eve and he loves the community and he is such a good sport. When we hung out quite a bit at FanFest together and we just kind of hit it off and because he's very genuine. I mean, and most Eve players are, I find, very genuine in their passions for Eve for one reason or another. But to find out that he was, because I didn't know that at the time, that he worked at JPL is pretty darn cool. He's a real steely-eyed missile man. So he's a really good guy, and he does. I mean, he has some great stories. So
I'm really looking forward to his presentation at Vegas this year. He's doing a talk. I think it's just called The Solar System.
Oh, nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah. So he does have a way about him and a way of talking about things, which I think is he could be reading the back of a cereal box and you'll still be like,
right.
What happened then, Uncle Max?
Yeah.
Tell me more. So I'm really looking forward to that because I'm
awesome.
a bit of a space nerd as well.
Oh,
so
really?
It ticks all the boxes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, man, me too.
Oh, if I keep telling myself if I was a younger man, I probably would have, planned my academic choices differently.
Yeah, for
to
space,
end up in a different field today.
Science thing, yeah.
Yeah, specifically like planetary science, exogeology, that kind of thing. That's always what I'm really fascinated about. I spend so much time sitting on. I mean, I'm terrible at recalling any of the facts that I learned.
Right.
But I spend a lot of time sometimes just sitting on Wikipedia and just reading about a moon.
Yeah. No, and I follow those
Io or Callisto or something, and what the atmosphere is comprised of, and what it may look like on the surface, and any manned missions that have gone near it, and all that kind of. That's my boat.
I do the same thing. I just spent. While I was waiting for you to come on board tonight, I was looking at an article about these guys who mapped out the volcanic activity of Io, and they created animated charts to show the different volcanoes going off at different times. And then by doing that, they noticed patterns and how the volcanic activity kind of travels around the moon, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, right.
From one location to the next. And so that was pretty fascinating. Nobody had ever done that before, so it's kind of neat.
There was a presentation from a lady who did a TED Talk. who were talking about the probe that landed on the surface of Titan.
Right.
And
Huygens.
yeah, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. And the passion that she is as a scientist had for it.
Right.
She was getting emotional just talking about the moment it happened. And I'm sure I can understand. I completely understand that because these people dedicate years and years of their lives on. Most of us in the public hear about it twice. Like we might hear a story in the news when the rocket launches, and then 7 years later when the thing lands.
Right. Right.
And you're like, oh, a piece of cake, right? That was
Right.
cool. Done.
Yeah.
Job done. But there are people who have been
decades
watching it
sometimes.
keeping an eye on that every single day for that 7 year period, and like you say, a decade before that in the planning and preparation
like
stuff.
That darn Pluto mission, right? That happened last year when we did the flyby Pluto, and it didn't even go into orbit. It didn't even slow down. Just flew by Pluto, and that was like a decade. Those people had put that thing together and launched it off like 10 years ago. That's amazing to me. Right?
Whole new people have been created by those people since then.
Yes.
It's almost like a generation ship.
I know.
Except the people stay in the point of origin while this thing is going through
incredible.
Space.
And they dedicate themselves to it, and it's a fascinating thing. And I can understand it. The build up to that sort of thing must be incredible. And there's just the anticipation of it working, and then those ones like the one this past week with the EU lander not quite working out the way they hoped, and that's got to be very disappointing when it doesn't happen.
It'd be heartbreaking.
Yeah, because it may be the only chance you get in your lifetime to do one of those.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, that's ending on a sour note. But
hey, they work more often than not.
Yes.
So
all right.
There you go.
Keep
that's
going, guys. You'll get another
I'd like to
chance.
remind the people that 2 out of 3 arms of government are still working, and that ain't bad.
If anyone from the European Space Agency is listening, we love you guys. We support you. Good job with the comet. The comet thing was awesome, and keep trying with Mars. Mars is tough. It's hard to land there. Despite what Elon Musk says, it's very, very difficult to get there and land properly. So no fault of yours. And you did get the orbiter. The orbiter works, right? So that's good news. So
we got the orbiting down. So
that's right. That's right.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I won't bring up the fact that they burped the last lander too. So this was their second chance at it, but.
Is it possible these people are just like some sort of weird techno sadists who get off on catapulting robots into massive objects?
Right. Maybe. Yeah.
This one's actually working. It's like,
that's right.
All right, cool. Let's go with it.
I'm very anxious. We need more robots going more places. I want to be around for the one that goes into the ocean on Europa. That kind of a. Because they keep talking about doing that, dropping a driller robot that drills down through the ice and into the ocean underneath the ice, and I think that would be super freaking cool. So,
they say that the oceans could, if there are thermal vents like there are on Earth, they could actually be teeming with life there. Because even though it's an icy shell close to the core, it could be like a lovely 40 degrees where. Some kinds of things, whatever the hell they are, just absolutely love hanging out around there.
Right, Europans. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Only one way to find out, though, and that's
to go
there. To go there.
Yeah, it's horribly complicated, I'm sure. So, but yeah.
Have you got any plans to do either Vegas or FanFest in the near future?
Well, we were going to go to Vegas, but our plans got canceled. I may have to. Take a little trip to the county jail, as it turns out. So, yeah. So, but FanFest in April, we are definitely. Our intention is to go.
Awesome. I should get to see you there again. I can't imagine myself not going to a FanFest now that I've been to FanFest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
I've been to the last
one.
4.
The last one we were going, and we had our room set up and everything like that, and we actually had plane tickets bought. And it just didn't work. We were. I mean, it was just a legal thing, so we couldn't go to eat those tickets. So that was a hard one. That was a hard pill to swallow. But we're definitely intending to go this year or next year. I guess I should say the next one. So.
All right, man. Well, I hope
Yeah.
it works out.
Thank you, Bam, and I really look forward to meeting you and seeing you there again. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to think about going to Iceland and FanFest, even though Iceland's starting to really complain about the tourists. So I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't encourage people to go to help out Iceland because apparently too many of you are going.
It's like, come on, Iceland. It's only just for a couple of days. You can do it. Stay with us.
And mostly we're gonna be drunk. We're harmless when we're there.
Well, just keep an eye on when the FanFest dates are, and when it comes around, you just Airbnb your house, make a little bit of money, pack up the car, and just take a drive to the north side of the island and go camping.
Right. Yeah, we won't even venture anywhere near that. So, thanks for being on and for staying up early and being on. I appreciate it. I waited the whole day for you to sleep and get up so we could talk. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Tim.
had to get my beauty sleep.
All right, man. Thanks for being our guest. For my guest, I said our, and I didn't mean to. My guest tonight, and I really appreciate it. Fly safe.
See you later, guys. Thank you very much.